Hello, my name's Anna Smith and I'm really delighted that Paul has asked me to speak to you all over at Woodside Baptist Church. So greetings, it's really nice to be part of your WhatsApp service. Just to forewarn you, I'm registered as severely sight impaired, stroke blind. So in a little minute when we do the Bible passage, I will be using magnifiers to read, and that's why, so that you have a bit of understanding. Also, don't worry about my eye being patched, because it's been patched like that for a couple of years. Nothing's happened to me. That's how I always cover my eye. It just helps my left eye to work a bit better. So, without any more ado, let's get thinking about our subject this morning. We're going to be looking at perseverance this morning, but before we really get stuck into that, I just want to read you the Bible passages. So our first Bible passage is from Galatians chapter 6, 9 to 10. So I'll say that again. Galatians chapter 6, 9 to 10. I'll just find it. There we are. So, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest. If we do not give up. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. Sorry, I had to put my head down to read that. And then our second passage of the talk is in Genesis, and it's 29 verses 14 to 20. So let's have a look and see what that says. And find it again. I did find it a bit earlier. So 19, nearly there. There it is. So, then Laban said to him, "You are my family. You are my own..." Sorry, I'll start that again. Then Laban said to him, "You are my own flesh and blood." After Jacob had stayed with him for a whole month, Laban said to him, "Just because you are a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger one was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel was lovely in form and beautiful. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, "I'll work for you 7 years in return for your younger daughter, Rachel." Laban said, "It's better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay here with me." So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. I'll put that down for a minute. So our subject today is perseverance. Now, I want to think about the Genesis story to start off with. Now, we could probably get a good number of sermons from the story of Jacob, but today we're going to stick with perseverance. As you probably know, Jacob had stolen the birthright from his twin brother Esau. And as a result, he'd ran away from his family, from Isaac, his father, and Esau, because he feared for his life. And he'd ran to a more distant relative, Laban. And this is the beginning, the passage that we've read is a little bit of the beginning of quite a long narrative in the Bible of the story of Jacob. And as you may know, Jacob worked for 7 years so that he could marry Rachel, the girl that he really loved. But after 7 years, there was a marriage and Laban cheated him. And instead of giving him Rachel, he gave him Leah, because she was the oldest daughter and that was the custom. So, to cut a long story short, Jacob ended up working another 7 years to get Rachel. So, and then there was the whole story around the sheep, which we won't think about today. But eventually he did get both Leah and Rachel as his wives. And then he ran away from Laban, and that's a whole different story that we'll tackle on a different day. But the point is, he had to really persevere to get what he wanted. He dearly wanted Rachel, and he ended up having to work 14 years to get her. And when I was thinking and reflecting about this story, it seemed to me that there were quite a few similarities between the situation that Jacob was facing and the situation that we faced over the last year. I think we first went into lockdown last year in March. I think we had about 10 weeks or something of the first lockdown. And then the government, when the numbers started to significantly go down enough, the government slightly and cautiously released us back into something like a half normal life. It never got really back to normal life. It got back to what was being called the new normal. And we hoped that that would be the end of it. But this virus, this coronavirus, unfortunately, didn't go away. And despite the promises that the Prime Minister and the government made that, you know, this lockdown was going to be it, they were forced in November to bring the country back into another lockdown. And for those of us living in London, I guess a lot of us feel that we've never actually come out of lockdown. They call this the third lockdown, but I guess really for a lot of us it just feels like a very long second lockdown. So it's been a real year of perseverance for a lot of people. A lot of people have really struggled this year, and some of those among you may have lost people that are very close to you, who've caught this awful COVID virus and have unfortunately passed away. So it's been a really difficult year for a lot of people, and it seems as if it's a never ending as well. I do hope that now that the numbers again are falling, that this really will be it. But of course there are other kinds of perseverance as well. I was reflecting on athletes who, particularly if they are top athletes and they want to go to some of the international sporting events, they have to really persevere in their training. They have to, you know, it amazes me that you see on the news these young people who are hoping to have dreams of going to the Olympics, and they get up at these astonishingly early times before school. They get up at things like 5:30 in the morning so that they can go and practice and train before they go on to school, and then they do the same in the evening. They come out of school and they go back to training again, and it takes incredible perseverance to do that. There are other kinds of perseverance. You may have to persevere with an awkward boss. You may be someone who's a crafter, and you maybe have a piece of craft that you've worked on or are working on that is a bit of a labour of love, but you've had to really persevere to get it done. So there's lots of different types of perseverance. There's also perseverance when it comes to relationships. And it's a really important subject, this, to think about relationships and how we have to persevere with a relationship. No marriage is a perfect marriage. Everybody has little idiosyncrasies that annoy other people. And if you're in a relationship, you have to learn to live with those idiosyncrasies. Or there may be even more serious issues in your marriage that you have to work through and persevere. One of the things that really struck me as well when you're thinking about perseverance is there's perseverance in our Christian walk. I think it's true to say that being a Christian and walking along the road with Christ is not a bed of roses. There are ups, there are downs. It is a perseverance. There may be times when you feel the Lord has even abandoned you, when you don't feel he's listening to prayer, he doesn't seem to be answering, he seems to be a million miles away, but you have to keep going and keep persevering and to find him. And so the Christian walk is a real sort of perseverance. And I think one of the ways, certainly for modern Christians in Britain today, is that we need to persevere with prayer and Bible reading. And that's a really hard thing to get into a regular routine of prayer and Bible reading. But I really want to encourage you to do that. I once had a lecturer, because I studied at Spurgeon's, and she said one of the things was discipline, but then there was delight. Because you see, with regularly reading the Bible and prayer, then eventually you do get to know the Lord, and there's delight in knowing the Lord, real delight, real security in having that knowledge that you are a child of God and that you are known by him. I want to turn now to the passages in Galatians, because it seems to me that when you read them and reflect on them, that they're not only calling us to a life of perseverance, but they're also calling on us to support one another. And I think this at the moment is so, so important. We maybe can't meet in church, we maybe can't go into each other's houses, we can't hold hands, we can't hug, but there are other ways that we can really support each other. We live in the 21st century, so we have all the advantages of technology. So we've got Zoom meetings, Facebook Live meetings, and of course there's the basic telephone. And a phone call to somebody can make such a difference, just to reassure them that the church is still there, that people are still thinking of them, that everything is okay. And of course at the moment we're very aware that a lot of people out there particularly if they're having to shield, are really quite isolated and lonely. So I would really encourage you during this time when everybody's having to really persevere through this virus, to really support each other, but to support each other in prayer and Bible reading. You know, you can pray over the phone. God is omnipotent. He's everywhere. He's not confined to one room. And so if you're praying in one place and your friend or relative or church member is praying in another building altogether, God is still there with you and he still hears your prayers. I know it's difficult, we want to be together, but we really just have to, I think, really support each other through this. Email, you know, even just a little friendly email. I'm sure you won't mind saying it, but I emailed our church secretary a week or so ago and said, you know, please stop apologising if you have to send out a second email in the day, because actually we need to support each other during this crisis, and it's how we'll get through it together. So there is actually as well, I just want to come back now to the Genesis passage, because right at the end of the story we realise that Jacob actually did get what he wanted. He did get Rachel. Although he had to persevere to get Rachel, he did get her in the end. And you know, that was a delight for him. It was a real delight. He achieved what he wanted to achieve. And for us as Christians, perseverance brings about huge rewards. If we persevere in prayer and Bible reading, we do get to know the Lord better. If we persevere in a relationship within our church, we get that security and knowledge of being in God's family, of being in his church, of being secure, of being supported and loved. And of course, the longer term goal is that all of us will share eternity together. You know, we maybe persevere through this life on earth, but eventually we will reach eternity and we will have enormous, wonderful time with Christ our Lord, and heir, because we will share an heir, we will be heirs with him. We're told that we will be heirs with him. And so, as we come to the end of this talk, I just want to encourage you to keep supporting each other, keep walking with the Lord, and to keep persevering in the Lord, and to keep supporting each other, to keep loving each other through this particularly difficult time that we're going through at the moment. It's really important that we do. And remember that as we do support each other, God is with us, and he's in everything that we do. He's with us right to the end. So I leave you now with the thought of thinking about what you might like to do when we do come out of this current difficulty. I'm sure there's lots of things you like to do, but I also want you to leave you thinking about the Lord's love. You know, I always think that when we are going through a difficult time, years ago someone said, think what Jesus would do, and she got me to think of what Jesus was standing beside me, and I realised Jesus is always with us. When we go through great difficulty, he's always there with us. And so I leave you with the thought that Jesus is always with us, regardless of what's going on in our lives, regardless of how of how hard our life is. Never forget, Jesus is with us. And I leave you with that message. Thank you.